Margaret Latkin Corley, and I want to ask the Minister for Justice and Equality to justify the presence of large presence of Gardaí at peaceful community protests against the installation of water meters in Dublin and elsewhere, particularly in view of the fact that the austerity programme that gave rise to these water meters and water charges is totally discredited and now has no mandate as a result of the recent elections.
Tara.
Obviously, the installation of water meters has given rise to protest actions by individuals and groups who are opposed to the introduction of water charges. I would say that legitimate, peaceful protest, as an expression of a particular viewpoint, of course, has its place in our society. There's no argument with that, but there are other equally legitimate rights which must also be protected. The right for a person to go about their lawful business and to make a living free from unwarranted interference, I would say, is one such right. And where the exercise of these rights raises the possibility of a breach of public order, then it is the responsibility of An Garda Síochána to act to prevent such breaches. It is important that the House should be aware that the Gardaí were present in the area on the day in question to maintain public order and to enable workers to go about their lawful business. Their presence was also required as a result of makeshift and illegal water connections having been installed. Such unauthorised work could have compromised the water supply in the area, and the Garda presence facilitated the contractors in carrying out the necessary work to prevent this risk. I am informed by the Gardaí authorities that after this work was completed, the Gardaí withdrew from the area. And it is for them, I would say to you, for them to take the necessary measures in relation to such matters, having regard to the public interest, including the need to uphold the rule of law and to ensure the safety of the public. However, I'm sure the Deputy will agree with me that there's no reason why both the rights of the protesters to protest and the obligations of An Garda Síochána, where public safety is concerned, should necessarily be in conflict. I do think that on some of these occasions, there's no doubt, the Gardaí are placed in a difficult position. I have no doubt that they would also receive criticism if they decided not to police such events and persons engaged in lawful employment or members of the public were prevented from going to work, or worse, were endangered or injured accidentally or otherwise.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. Deputy Higgins.
Minister, the reality is that in many parts of Dublin, in Cork, in Limerick and other areas around the country, ordinary householders, i.e. taxpayers, have been peacefully protesting against the installation of water meters because they know that these are the tools by which your government imposes yet another austerity tax upon them, who have been forced to carry so much already as part of the bailout of bankers and bondholders. Now, Minister, is it not the case that this was a huge issue at the local and European elections, that the policy of yourself and the Labour Party was flatly rejected, that the moral right is entirely with the householders and those protesting, and yet the government is using the Garda to try and force this development on people? I put it to you that at a time when many people complain that they cannot get a Garda when they need them in emergency cases of perhaps domestic abuse or other issues that arise, this is a scandalous waste of public resources.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Well, I put it to you that the installation of water meters is being carried out on behalf of Irish Water in accordance with what is a statutory responsibility and a democratic decision. And as I have said already, clearly all citizens are entitled to peaceful protest, no question about that, and I'd certainly affirm that right. But, you know, rights come with responsibilities, I would say to you. And equally, if you have the right to protest, there is a responsibility not to breach the law. And I'm not sure whether you would stand over, dangers to compromising the water supply in the area. I mean, if that is the reality of the situation, and the Gardaí were there to ensure the proper water meters were installed, they were supporting Irish Water in doing their statutory duty, their statutory responsibility. And Obviously, I'm not sure that, you know, I would have thought you would not support efforts to prevent, you know, working people from getting on with what they were being paid to do in those circumstances, and in the circumstances around the country where they are installing the water meters.
Deputy Higgins.
Well, Minister, I put it to you that you're coming at it from the wrong angle completely. The fact is that this new water tax, which will be a huge burden on families, as your Taoiseach said, when the so-called full cost recovery is in place, €580 per household, it's a tax too far that people simply cannot carry, and there is outrage about it. And your party and the Labour Party learned that in the campaigning for the recent elections. And therefore this tax, and therefore the means employed to implement it, have no democratic mandate and no moral authority. And that is why citizens right around the country are objecting. And you should end the policy of the water tax and metering, this wastage of taxpayers' funds, instead of it going in to fix the pipes where there is huge leakage, rather than sending Gardaí into communities to enforce a tax that is just discredited before it even begins.
Minister, final reply.
Well, clearly you're giving your opinions about the tax, but I'm speaking about here is about public order, and the Gardaí role in enforcing public order is if there is a threat to it. And what I'm saying is that there is, of course, a right to protest, but there is equally a right for people to go about their work and install the meters, doing the job they've been asked to do, Irish Water have under statute are obliged to do. And that's precisely what was happening on the day that you raised the question about. And in the opinion of the senior Gardaí responsible for their deployment, with the threat that there was there, that the numbers were proportionate to that. I'm sure, Deputy, you don't object to what the Gardaí did recently when they were making sure in the good weather that we didn't have a repeat of what happened on beaches in Dublin last year, and they took appropriate steps in relation to public order. Rightly so, and they've been praised. They've been praised for that, because they took the appropriate steps. And I would put it to you that the Gardaí were taking appropriate steps in relation to the incident that you mentioned.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Niall Collins.